Today I'm talking about telling your child that they are autistic. And if you have been around here for a while, you may have seen the video where I told our 11-year-old that she is autistic.
Mama, the results.
Look at this.
Yes.
Please look at this, Mama.
Although basically she was kind of the one who told us that she thought she was autistic. And the video where I told our 7-year-old that he's autistic.
Remember how we did that autism test?
Yeah.
I saw the doctor today.
Yeah.
She said that you are autistic.
Yay! I'm autistic! Literally. He fell for a trick.
It wasn't a trick. I'm telling the truth.
Yes.
Are you? Yes.
You're autistic.
You may have also seen the video not that long ago where I reacted to my own diagnosis. And she said it became clear to her very early on talking to me, and that it was probably very clear to me too. Oh my gosh. But I actually really feel like the whole process of our kids learning about autism started way back. That's sort of where I am going to begin with this. And that's really when I began talking to Maggie and Sadie together about Maggie being autistic. The first real memory I have talking about autism with Maggie was when we were driving to a therapy session, and it was a hippotherapy session, so like equine therapy with horses, where actually both girls would go and ride horses. And at that point Sadie only had an ADHD diagnosis. We were on our way out there, and I wasn't sure how much of the conversation that Maggie would understand. I know that Maggie understands a lot of what I say, and I always try to do my very best to presume competence and to speak respectfully about her, but I also wasn't sure how much she would get speaking kind of abstractly about autism, or even whether the conversation would interest her enough to pay attention, because Maggie likes talking about mermaids, Maggie likes talking about water parks, Maggie likes talking about swimming. There are her interests, but I figured autism was maybe not that interesting to her, because there is a very small amount of things that she kind of talks in scripts about, and most of the things Maggie talks about are in a small range of scripts. So I just wasn't really sure how it was gonna go, and so I started talking about autism, and mainly Sadie was the one talking back, so it was mostly a conversation between me and Sadie, and Maggie was just sitting in her little car seat listening as we were driving. This was how that initial conversation, the autism conversation, went. We already lived here. That means that Tessie had been born, which puts us in 2016. That means that Maggie was 6 years old. And it wasn't like we hid that she was autistic before that. We talked about autism all the time, but I hadn't really thought to sit down and have a conversation about it. And I don't remember exactly what I said, but it was something along the lines of, I started talking about how Maggie's brain works differently from other people's. At that point, of course, Maggie was the only person in our family who had been diagnosed. So the ratio was 1 to 6 diagnosed instead of 5 to 2. And I said, sometimes that means that she needs extra help. Sometimes that makes some things harder. Sometimes that can make things like communicating a little bit harder, but sometimes that means that there are things that she is a lot better at. Some things are a lot easier for her too. And we talked about the things that Maggie was really good at, like picking locks and climbing. We talked about all of the things that she loves to do and that are her strengths. But it also means that there are a lot of things that we can help her with, and it means that there are ways that our family protects her. And right away Sadie just caught on and started talking about it, and how it was true. There were some things that Maggie was better at and some things that were harder, like words, but she was learning words. And then Sadie asked me, wait a second, am I autistic? And I said, I don't know. In the middle of the conversation, I looked back, and Maggie had the hugest smile on her face, and she just started laughing and laughing, and she looked absolutely delighted. That isn't something that just usually happens unless there's a reason for it to happen. That was our first autism conversation, and it was like 4 years ago. But I can fast forward to the present, and I can tell you about another conversation that is similar, that is much more fresh in my mind. You saw some of the reactions we've had here, but there was another time shortly after diagnosis where we had a time here where there was a kid who was having a hard time after their diagnosis with something. And it was over something small. It was over forgetting something, and they were really, really upset. And it wasn't a big deal. They weren't in trouble. And I went upstairs to their room and I sat down with them and said, hey, listen, you have ADHD just like me and just like a couple other siblings have. Maybe all your siblings have, I don't know. And that means that you have to work a lot harder to remember some things. You and me, we don't have the best memories about some things, and it's really easy for us to forget things that we just heard sometimes, especially when we're excited about something else. But it also means we can get really focused on other things and be really into other things, and that can be really cool too. So you have things that you are really, really good at. I want to make sure that you know that. I said, yes, with autism and ADHD, sometimes there are things that will be harder for you, and you are going to have to work harder. There are also things that you love, and that is really important. You have so many things that you're good at, and you know what? It doesn't have to be something academic. You don't have to be super smart, something you don't have to be super good at some subject. It doesn't have to be some superpower. We have things that we're interested in, that we love. It can be anything. If it's what you're passionate about and it's what you're interested in, that can really make up for a lot. I know that having special interests can really be, in some cases, looked down upon, but I think that knowing a lot about certain things, or even one thing, can be really, really cool. Being an expert in one area is kind of awesome, no matter what it is. Patrick is becoming an expert in Pokemon right now. He knows so much about everything single Pokemon, and sometimes it can be a little bit much. Every day he comes home and he is telling me everything about every single Pokemon's attack, and I don't even know how he absorbs so much information. But the thing that I'm the most thankful about is that James is also really into Pokemon right now, so that they can just Pokemon facts at each other all the time. Thank goodness. So I guess what I'm saying is, tell them about their diagnosis. Don't keep it a secret, because they'll figure it out. They'll figure out that they're different. There's really no hiding when you're autistic that there's something different about you from your peers. They'll know, and honestly, as long as you don't act like this is some horrific illness, as long as you treat it like it's not a bad thing, like it's just a different way of being, it's not going to be some heartbreaking thing. Maybe celebrate it with your family like we do.
I think supposed to be in your chair.
And I feel like that's sort of worked out well for our family. I'm not trying to downplay that autism is a disability and only talk about the happy shiny parts, because it is, and there are certainly challenges, but a lot of those challenges come from living in a neurotypical world, and a lot of those challenges can be lessened if you know how to lessen them, like noise blocking headphones to block out loud sounds, sunglasses always available and with you for when it's just too bright and too much, breaks, lots and lots of breaks, and a sense of community so that you know that you aren't alone in this, that there are people out there that feel and experience the world the same way as you do. Because when you go through this world feeling like you're the only one who experiences it this way, it's really, really lonely and alienating. And when you realize that there's a lot of other people that experience it the same way, it is liberating. It's really cool to start to find your people who have gone through life feeling the same way that you feel things, or at least in a similar way. And you can't do that. Find people that have similar experiences, similar sensory experiences, similar childhood experiences, similar adolescence experiences from the nightmare that is high school, and going through it being different than everybody else, or thinking that you're different from everybody else. And so finding your people and realizing you're not actually alone is really cool. And you can't do that until you know about your diagnosis. And that is why it's so important to tell your kids and to let them know about it, so that they know that there is a reason for feeling the way that they're feeling, and it's not just that they're weird or bad or any of the other labels that people give to kids who have these diagnoses. Anyways, that is it for today. If you like this video, we'd love it if you'd give it a thumbs up, and if you're interested in all things autism, we'd love it if you'd hit subscribe, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.